Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Want to say hello to all the Pewter people that are watching the show this afternoon as we talk about rivalry week. That's right, it is Bucs versus Saints, the most bitter rivalry in the NFC South, in my personal opinion. And first place is on the line with two 2-1 teams, along with the Atlanta Falcons, but we'll talk about them later on down the road. So we're going to preview this blood feud of a matchup. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me live from the Advent Health Training Center is the face that runs the place, Scott Reynolds of pewterreport.com. SR, how we doing?
Doing good, Matt. This is going to be a fun game. I'm really looking forward to this one, just because I think this is going to be a better measuring stick for the Buccaneers going up against a Saints team that I think they're really on par with, as opposed to the Eagles, where they were just simply outclassed and outmatched. I mean, the Eagles, no shame in losing to them. I mean, this is the NFC's champion, right? And we'll see if the Bucs can maintain their NFC South supremacy for a third straight year over the New Orleans Saints. Of course, Tampa Bay won 2 years ago, Matt, the division, even though they got swept by the Saints. But last year, they finally took care of business, finally ended that supremacy that the Saints had over the Buccaneers, sweeping the Saints, and that really helped them to win the NFC South for a second straight year.
Yeah, it really feels like going all the way back to 2020 when the Bucs retired Drew Brees by defeating the. Once you got Drew Brees out of there, it's been all honky-dory for the Bucs ever since in terms of going up against the New Orleans Saints. But this is a new-look Bucs team, obviously, especially on that offensive side of the football. And to a degree, it was a new-look Saints team with Derek Carr back in the mix. But a lot of things have changed for this Week 4 matchup. Doesn't look like Derek Carr is going to play. So a familiar face that always brings the fireworks every time he's played against the Bucs, Jameis Winston, looks like he's going to be starting for the New Orleans Saints against the Bucs on Sunday at the in New Orleans. And also, another familiar face, Alvin Kamara, returns from his 3-game suspension. So another element that the Bucs absolutely have to factor in and game plan for, especially when you look at the way that the Bucs struggled against stopping the run against Philadelphia, who has admittedly a much better line than the New Orleans Saints do.
Yeah, and really, when you look at this Saints offensive line, it's not very good. All right, they've given up 11 sacks. They've struggled to score points. You look at their scoring in the first 3 games; it's not really been impressive whatsoever. They've had 3 close games, and they've been on the positive side of those in 2 of those games. Most recently, losing to the Packers, they had a 17-0 lead at Lambeau Field.
Yeah. And
Derek Carr gets hurt. Jameis Winston comes in. He plays okay, but Carr got sacked hard by Rashawn Gary, who had 3 sacks, 2 of which were against not Trevor Penning, who is not a very good offensive tackle, their left tackle, first-round pick from a couple years ago.
Yeah.
No, it was Ryan Ramczyk, who's one of the best right tackles in the league. He gets schooled by Rashawn Gary, ends up getting hurt. Derek Carr got slammed to the turf, and he's going to be out for this week, is everything that we're hearing. But they've served 11 sacks so far. Penning has given up 3. He is not a very good left tackle. He's given up 11 pressures so far. Ramczyk, as we mentioned, had the 2-sack game against Rashawn Gary last week. Cesar Ruiz has given up a sack at guard. James Hurst, the other guard's given up 2 sacks. Eric McCoy, the center, has given up 2 sacks. So this kind of reminds me a little bit of the Bears front, where they're going to be soft in the middle, and I think that you're going to have to see a better game from Vita. And I think, too, especially with Trevor Penning, whether it's Shaq Barrett or Joe Tryon-Shoyinka or both rushing from that side, I think that the Buccaneers can get back with their sack attack in New Orleans.
Yeah, and that'll be one of those games within the games for the Bucs, because in the past, going up against New Orleans, and obviously Drew Brees was a big difference, and there's some of the changes over the past couple of years, but the Bucs traditionally in recent years have had a difficult time getting to whoever New Orleans quarterback is. Now, the one time they did is when Devin White injured Jameis Winston, but then the Saints backup came in and helped New Orleans defeat Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
But the Bucs are going to be hoping that it is more like that Bears game where JTS had, as we said, maybe his best game as a pass rusher. Shaq Barrett with a huge game, obviously, with that pick six, but also getting to the quarterback. Cam Gill.
Right.
I mean, you look at that Chicago game, and it was absolutely fantastic. But then you look at the game against the Eagles, between all the outside linebackers, Shaq Barrett, Yaya Diaby, Nelson, and JTS, they combined for one quarterback hit. Not a sack, one quarterback hit. Now, with that said, the Bucs have 9 sacks on the season, so they had been getting to the quarterback. They had a sack on Jalen Hurts, but he slipped on the play. That doesn't necessarily count.
Yeah.
So it's really just a big question of which Bucs pass rush shows up on the interior defensive line.
Right.
We know they're going to blitz Antoine Winfield Jr. We know Devin White's going to get in the mix if they trust him health-wise with his groin injury. But this team is at its best when those outside linebackers are flying off the edge. And that's what I really want to see more than anything else. Yeah,
we need to see, and the Bucs need to see if Joe Tryon-Shoyinka really took some steps, made some strides as a pass rusher 2 weeks ago against the Bears. Listen, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, they're two of the best offensive tackles in the league. I mean, you don't want to give anybody a pass, but it's understandable that Shaq Barrett and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka didn't have much success against those guys. However, having said that, they better bounce back this week, and there's going to be some opportunities for them to get after Jameis Winston, who has some ability, some escapability, but he's not like Jordan or Jalen Hurts, and he's not like Justin Fields either. So I would expect that if Tampa Bay is going to have some success, they're going to do so by rushing the passer and getting to Jameis Winston and either sacking him or forcing him into some errant throws. You know, Jameis Winston had 3 fourth-quarter interceptions at the end of the Week 2 loss to Tampa Bay last year. The Bucs won 20-10, in part due to a pick six from Mike Edwards, who did that a couple times in Tampa Bay. He was certainly well adept at not just getting interceptions, but taking them to the house. We remember that interception pair of interceptions he had against Matt Ryan and the Falcons in Week 2 back in 2021. So it was not a good day for Jameis Winston. He threw a pair of picks to Jamel Dean in Week 2. Not sure if Dean's going to be there, and maybe we should spend a second or two talking about the injuries. Dean had a couple picks in Week 2 against Jameis Winston. Then you had a forced fumble and a fumble recovery by Carlton Davis on Chris Olave. And we're not sure about either corner right now, Matt.
No, we're not. Todd Bowles using a word that I've never heard Todd Bowles say before. I'm familiar with the word, but he, in describing Jamel Dean, whether or not he's going to play, said that it's iffy for Jamel Dean, which hearing a football coach say iffy never sounds like a good thing.
Right.
For Carlton Davis, he said that Davis told him, meaning Bowles, that he is feeling better.
Yeah.
And Bowles is kind of like, I won't believe it until I see him actually run. So at this point on Wednesday, whatever day it is, at this point on Wednesday, it sounds like Carlton is closer to playing on Sunday than Jamel Dean is. He also gave an update on Kalijah Kancey, who just said he's progressing well. Does that mean he's going to play this Sunday? Todd Bowles is a big "we'll see" type of guy, and you won't really get that answer.
We understand that.
Yeah, we understand that.
Kalijah
Kancey, probably a heady player. The more that he gets to go and play. But that's an injury update. The injury report should probably come out maybe by the time this podcast is over. But I mean, 2 corners going down.
Yeah.
I don't really care who the quarterback is when you have a talented guy like Chris Olave, who we talked a lot about on yesterday's show. Not a pretty look for the Bucs secondary.
Yeah, and at the same time, too, even D. Delaney had he got nicked up at the end of that game, but Todd Bowles was encouraged by the fact he returned to action and played on some special teams in the fourth quarter. But today's practice was really a walkthrough, so they're still kind of healing up from that Monday night game. So they're really only going to have 2 practices: the Thursday practice, which will probably be more full go, and then they'll probably dial it down a little bit on Friday. And then you got to walk through at the stadium on Saturday once they fly into New Orleans, and then it's game time again. So,
yeah,
I would suspect that we're going to see a lot of game time decisions again, and not just who's going to play, but who's really feeling good, right? I mean, we saw Vita play that game on Monday night with a pectoral injury. We saw Devin White play with a groin injury. How much healing time and time in the training room can they get between now and Sunday to where they're going to be playing better than they did against the Eagles? Because what they did against the Eagles was not quite good enough, as I mentioned. In today's 2-point conversion, it was a nighttime game for the Buccaneers on Monday, Matt. But the stars didn't shine. We didn't see Antoine Winfield, Shaq Barrett, Vita Devin White, Levante David had 13 tackles, but when you're running
more, 7 yards down the field after the Eagles already jammed it down your throat. So
when the Eagles have 78 plays on offense, you're going to have 13 tackles. Or at least
the complete different ends of the spectrum of the amount of plays that the Eagles offense had versus the amount of plays that the Bucs had on offense was pretty eye-opening and disparaging. But to your point about the injuries, I mean, even just looking at the snap count from yesterday's game, this one a little bit of a tweak because Devin White is usually one of those guys in the 100%er club, as I like to call it, of playing every single snap. Now, he played 95% of the snaps, so it wasn't like he wasn't on the field that much. But with Vita the percentage of his snaps came down ever so slightly, but they played a lot more Will Golson. They played a lot of Mike Green. And Logan Hall had the most snaps out of any interior defensive lineman. Greg Gaines got in the mix a lot more. But, going back and watching that game, and as it pertains to going up against the Saints, I understand that the Saints' offensive line is weaker than usual. But Logan Hall was getting pushed around a fair amount last game. And so was Mike Green. So outside of Vita I'm not exactly sure how much of an advantage the Bucs have on that interior defensive line besides Vita going up against that Saints group. I'd almost like to see even a little bit more of Greg Gaines. And let's see what Will Golson has. Because I feel like Will Golson right now, he at least knows how to take on double teams. And while he struggled last season with getting to the passer, I kind of like Will Golson's veteran experience, knowing how to take on a double team, attacking the defensive line versus Logan Hall and Mike Green still trying to get into that mix and get a feel for the game.
That's a great point, Matt. And outside of Levante David, nobody's played the New Orleans Saints more than Will Golston, right? So he knows what the Saints want to do on offense, and he's played against Alvin Kamara and some of those offensive linemen that have been around there for some time, quite a bit. So I'd like to see a little bit more Will Golston too. Maybe even start him, right? Maybe even kind of split the playing time between a Mike Green and a Will Golston, right? But give Will the start. Give him that little bit of boost like Celsius gave me today. I had the Oasis vibe, which is one of my afternoon favorites. On Wednesday, Matt, I'm an older guy. It's a 2 Celsius day for me. I had the orange this morning and the Oasis vibe here. Why don't you tell us all about Celsius, Matt?
Yeah, obviously we love Celsius. I started my day off with Celsius as well. I had the orange pomegranate. That was my morning beverage on the way to the
very
good
good choice.
The Bucs facility. But there's no sugar, no post energy drink crash or jitters that you get with other products out there. There's obviously an assortment of flavors from the Oasis vibe to the sparkling lemon lime. The Arctic vibe is my personal favorite. The newest one is the Cosmic vibe. But if you need to know where to find one, and that's a sparkling fruit punch, by the way. If you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, that's when you go to the store locator on the Celsius website. Punch in your address. Doesn't really matter where you are in the country, and it'll tell you your closest geographical location where you can pick one up. It could be a Walgreens, a Walmart, 7-Eleven, health and fitness store, or a bodega. And if you have Celsius, you like it, you want more, I'd recommend getting that variety pack. And if you need to get it in bulk, which I recommend, that's when you go to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save, get that variety pack, because variety is the spice of life. And you can have it sent to your residence whenever you want. It's your call. It could be a week, month, quarterly, yearly, whenever you want. Just make sure you're having Celsius and make Celsius your number one pick, the official energy drink of the Pewter Report podcast.
Yep. Engel with a good comment here. And this is why Kalijah Kancey being out for so long is crippling to our D-line so far. Granted, we don't know what he can really do. However, we still need to see something soon. Yes. And we asked about Kalijah Kancey today, and you mentioned, Matt, that, Todd Bowles didn't rule him out. So we'll see what his status is. With him and with Carlton Davis, especially with that toe injury, I don't want to necessarily say don't play him. But, man, it's like you're so close to that bye week where, gosh, after the bye week, I would think Carlton Davis's toe should be feeling great if he doesn't play, or at least a heck of a lot better. And you'd have to think that if Kalijah Kancey doesn't play this week with another week off, you got to think he's going to be ready to go after that time playing the Lions.
So I agree with that. But another thought I had was, and depending on how close they are, which we don't totally know at this point, but saying that they're kind of close, knowing that they have a week off after this game, would it almost be better, maybe even for someone like Kalijah that's still getting NFL experience, to activate him, play him, keep
a little
him on
bit,
a pitch count, and then know that he has another week to recover so he doesn't have to immediately get banged up and go out and play again. It's almost like in an odd sense, it's the regular season game and it matters, but it's almost like a warm up for him to go out and play. And then bam, you get that rest again. And then you go for the long haul after that. I don't know. This is something I'm curious of. We'll see how the Bucs go about it, but we talked a lot about the defensive line.
Well, actually, if I can real quick, Matt, the injury report just came out. So we'll stay on topic here for a quick second. So, and it says, the Buccaneers conducted a walkthrough. The practice report is an estimation. So the good news is they had Carlton Davis with his toe injury as a limited participant. So, like as you mentioned, seeing some progress there. Jamel Dean with the neck and shoulder, and it looked like a stinger, right? That's kind of what we said in the press box when Jamel was kind of like holding that shoulder down, coming off the field, looked like a stinger. With his neck and shoulder injury, did not participate. All these other players did not participate today. Servasi Dennis with the hamstring, and that's to be expected. He missed the last couple games as well. Kalijah Kancey with the calf. Derek Pitts with a hamstring. That's kind of new. Vita with the pectoral injury, and Devin White. They list him with a foot injury, not a groin injury. So that's interesting. And there's no D Delaney. So maybe D Delaney's a full go then for Sunday.
You know what's odd is when we were interviewing Devin White after the game, he was like still putting his shoes on, and he put one shoe on, and then he held on to his other shoe and like conducted questions and answered stuff. I thought it was just like, a lot more reporters came over after, and he just like didn't have a second. But now I'm curious if it had something to do with the foot injury that went on. And the Bucs did work out 2 corners today, and now seeing that Derek Pitts is on the list as well. Todd Bowles said that they're not going to make a decision yet, but if it comes to adding another corner, if they have to, if the guys aren't ready, then they will. And now you add another corner into the mix on this injury report. And I think we may be seeing a transaction sooner rather than later.
William Jackson III, who is a first-round draft pick out of University of Houston, played there long before Logan Hall did. But because he was a first-round pick back in 2016 with the Bengals, he was in for a workout, as well as Tay Hayes, who has bounced around the league on several teams. Interesting that Tay Hayes is only 5'9", about 180 pounds. That's not typically a Todd Bowles type corner. And then you've got William Jackson, 6 foot, about 189 pounds. So again, kind of a smaller corner. Really interesting because Todd typically likes those bigger, longer corners. But we'll see. I even asked Josh Hayes today, who is a reserve cornerback, if he's done any cross training and outside corner in case they need him. He said not yet. All of his reps have come in the slot where he's backing up Christian Izien, but he has played outside corner. He did that at North Dakota State. He's played some safety. He's played some nickel at Kansas State. So in a pinch, he could go out there and do it. But we might see a transaction. I think they might wait until, well, gosh, you know what? It's tough, Matt, because if you wait until tomorrow to see who participates in practice, then you're bringing on a new corner, whether it's William Jackson or Tay Hayes, for Friday's practice, and then you have a walkthrough on Saturday. Is that enough time to get either one of those guys into this defensive mix and understand the game plan? Probably not.
Especially Todd Bowles' defense, where
Right.
you're asked of a lot of stuff. Now, obviously, Todd Bowles is smart. I mean, he told us today that he knows defense. We'll play that clip later on. But I think if it comes down to the situation where they have to play significant minutes, he would obviously alter the defense a ton, where he's not going to be like, oh, no, you got to have the same communication as the safety on the other side, or, all the different stuff, because we've seen blown coverages before, even with the 11 starters that have been here for a while, even going back
Carlton
to
Davis in that playoff game, he blew a coverage. So
exactly. So if they are still messing it up here and there, we saw it in the first game against the Vikings too. Yeah. I don't think Bowles, who is he's been more aggressive this season, but overall is a bit more of a conservative coach, isn't going to put those guys in that scenario where they could really screw it up.
Well, our Saints coverage, we're just starting to dive into it right now. We've got plenty to go here in the rest of the show, but it's going to continue tomorrow too. We've got a special guest on tomorrow. We've got WFLA's Eileen Natchik on. She is a new WFLA reporter with our partners, News Channel 8. And Eileen has got an interesting story because she covered the Saints for a couple of years. She's a Tampa native and played volleyball at Bishop McLaughlin here in Tampa, and then went to East Carolina and played volleyball, and I think some basketball too. And so she's a jock. She knows sports, and then went to cover the LSU Tigers in the state of Louisiana, as well as the New Orleans Saints. So she brings good insight covering the Buccaneers. She's been here since training camp started. So she's been with WFLA back here in Tampa, covering the Buccaneers, training camp, preseason, into the start of the season here. But she also has that Saints intel. So make sure that you tune in tomorrow at 4:00. NFC South is on the line in this game, Bucs versus Saints. Saints have already played an NFC South opponent. This is the Bucs' first divisional game of the year. And then really they don't play another division game till later in the year. So if Tampa Bay, Matt, if they can get a 3-1 start heading into the bye week, plus a 1-0 lead in the division, that certainly sets them up for a pretty good start to the season.
Yeah, 100%. And very excited to have Eileen on, especially with just her seeing both worlds of it, the Saints and the Buccaneers. And she's been great to talk to and super cool ever since she came to the Tampa media. But yeah, this is, you've heard some of the players say it, like Baker talked about it today, Chris Godwin as well, a little bit too, where, every game's important. They treat it the same. Baker said this is the type of game that you circle. But they also understand, while they obviously want to win this game and jump out to a 3-1 lead or 3-1 record, there's still a lot more time where if they were going to lose, they can still make up a lot of that ground. And that's all true. But I really look at it, and we mentioned it on yesterday's show a little bit. You beat the Vikings, you beat the Bears. That's 2 wins against NFC teams. Yeah, you lost to the Eagles, but you win again. You're 1-0 in the NFC South. Mm-hmm. You're 3-1 just against the NFC.
That's right.
That's going to go a long way for a team that we predict is going to be 8-9, maybe 9-8.
Yeah.
Those 9 wins, if let's just say 6 or 7 of them are against NFC teams, that's going to make a difference. No one thinks of it now, but that's going to make a big difference at the end of the season when you go, man, I wish they would have beat blah, 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 this team, that team, that team. Like if they would have lost to the Bears in week 2, man, they should have had that game against the Bears that would have given them the tiebreaker against Green Bay or whoever it is. So, yes, there's a long way to go, but this game is a little bit more meaningful than just 2 NFC South teams that don't like each other.
Agreed. And you look at the Saints and their schedule, and when I say they've had some close games, I'm not kidding. They beat the Tennessee Titans 16-15 in week 1. And that was a home game. Then they went on the road to play the Panthers, and they won that game 20-17 against the winless Panthers team. And they had a 17-0 lead last week and blew it in the fourth quarter, allowing the Packers to score the final 18 points. They lost 18-17. And what's interesting is if you look at these scores, right, 16 points, 20 points, and then I want to say 17, but it's really 10 points from the offensive side because their X factor this year is a guy by the name of Rashid Shaheed. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know this guy, you will on on Sunday, he might be the fastest player on the field, and that includes Jamel Dean if he plays. This kid has got some wheels. He had a 76-yard punt return for a touchdown against the Packers that allowed the Packers to get out to that 17-0 lead. So New Orleans has always had a really good special teams unit, not just kicking and punting, but coverage and return units as well. And this guy he's a real challenge to cover as a punt returner. And we saw the Bucs struggle last week with Britton Covey. I say last week, it was Monday. But Britton Covey had some big returns against that Bucs punt coverage unit. And they really got to be mindful about getting this guy pinned in and then making the tackle, because Rashid Shaheed, who also is not just a special teams return guy. He's got 9 catches, 152 yards, and a touchdown on the season, plus 3 carries for 11 yards. And he's got a 17-yard receiving average. They will find ways to get him the ball, throwing it deep, wide receiver screens, end arounds, and also on punt returns.
Yeah, first of all, Rashid Shaheed is just a great name to say. It's a very fun name to say. And hey, he's putting up Chris Godwin numbers with the limited amount of catches and the receiving yards as well. But yeah, he's become a bit of a deep threat already with that speed, as you just talked about. Has more touchdowns than Chris Godwin on the season, if you want to count that 2-point conversion. But if I'm Todd Bowles, not even Keith Armstrong, if I'm Todd Bowles, I'm going to Jake Camarda, who we know can boot the ball deep.
Right.
I'm very concerned about this punt coverage still.
Yep.
I'm telling Jake Camarda, punt the ball out of bounds. Either kick it that deep or with a little more hang time where the rest of the gunners and everybody can get down and force him to make a fair catch, or punt that ball out of bounds. I don't even want to risk Rashid Shaheed, returning and getting into great field position or scoring a touchdown, because in these close games that the Bucs have been in, and as we just pointed out with the Saints, the smallest thing could be the biggest difference. For the game last year in New Orleans, it was the interceptions in the fourth quarter, the big plays at the end. In this one, very much could be special teams that wins the game for either the Bucs or the Saints, eliminated from the game, or from this game specifically. I'm a big fan of special teams. I think they should be more involved in the game. Punt the ball out of bounds, Jake Camarda.
You know
there's no harm in it.
Hey, if you want to knock a punt 60, 70 yards and give them a touchback, I don't care about that. Sure, it's nice to pin them deep inside the 10-yard line. I trust Todd Bowles' defense to defend 80 yards, Matt, right? Like if you want to just say, Saints, start the ball at the 20 on punts, that's fine. To me, I would rather do that than take my chances with a guy who has got game-breaking speed. And, again, whether it's 80 yards, 90 yards, I trust Todd Bowles' defense to put the clamps on an offense that has really struggled, to score points. So they do get Alvin Kamara back this week.
Yeah,
he'll be a little bit, of a problem. But to be perfectly frank with you, I know Todd Bowles is scared to death of Alvin Kamara. They've done a really good job against him in most of the recent games. Yeah,
it's been Taysom Hill that's been a little bit more of the thorn in their side, and obviously he's a big factor in that offense. And I feel like they might even utilize him just a little bit more now that Jameis is probably going to be the starter. They're going to have to find another way to kind of trick this Bucs team, or just keep the Bucs going horizontal and come up with different ways. Because so far the rushing game really hasn't been great for. I know it's been terrible for the Bucs. Hasn't been great for the Saints either through 3 games. They had 69 rushing yards in their first game against the Titans. Did much better against Carolina with 134, but then they dropped down to 77 again against the Packers last week. So it hasn't really been like the Saints are running the ball that efficiently. Now, Kamara can make a big difference with it, but we'll see going into this one. We got a super chat from Christopher Cole. Thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat, who says, do y'all think we should start Leverett at left guard and Stinney at right guard if the starters don't improve?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I would give Malk and Filer a little bit more time. They face the toughest test that they're going to face all year outside of the 49ers down the road. And we'll see how much this offensive line has improved by the time they get to San Fran, which is late November, early December, I think.
Yeah.
It's later in the season.
Yes.
So this Eagles, test in week 3 was It was a wake-up call for sure. I think if you're looking for a positive, I mean, Luke Gedeke, right? I mean, he's played really well at right tackle. I talked to Gedeke today. I'll have an interview with him in my SR's Fab 5 on Friday. And Tristan Wirfs was even telling me, he's like, hey, man, he erased Hassan Reddick. You didn't hear Reddick's name at all.
Absolutely true.
On Monday night. And Tristan, of course, is doing a great job as expected. We knew he was going to be, a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle sooner rather than later. And he's played really well. I remember doing the training camp diary with Tristan this summer. And this is kind of when he was talking about, having to go, see a therapist and, a sports psychologist and get his confidence up and all that. I'm like, Tristan, you do realize you can jump out of a pool, right? Like you're a mutant. You're a superhero, right? And he starts laughing. I said, you're going to be fine at left tackle. He's like, well, keep telling me that because I need to hear it. But man, no, Tristan, look at the game film, dude. Like you're really, really good wherever you play in that line. But yes, to this point, Matt, I like Nick Leverett in a pinch. And we saw too with the transition from right side of the ball to left side of the ball, from tackle to guard, from small school to the NFL, what it did to Luke Gedeke last year. And I think Cody Mauch is probably a little further ahead, especially even in pass protection, than Gedeke was. So I'm not going to press that button just yet. But, Matt, we'll see how Mauch and Filer fare this week. And maybe against the Lions, but I'm not opposed to switching out starters because it did work last year. Nick Leverett did play better than Luke Gedeke down the stretch.
And I think you just need a bigger sample size more than anything else. I think it's way too early to start making a move. Now, last year, we kind of felt that the Bucs took too long to make a move. So where exactly is the right answer? Is it one more game going to the bye? I don't necessarily think so. And I think it's important, and you just touched on it a little bit with Cody Mauch. Let's remember, the Bucs offensive line, in pass protection-wise, they only allowed one sack against the Vikings, which Baker Mayfield admitted was his fault. They kept them clean against the Bears in week 2. And then, obviously, everything we talked about with Philly having a great defensive line got to Baker a couple of times. But overall, I don't think the pass blocking has been porous by any means. The run blocking has to do much, much better, but that goes across the board for really everybody. So I'm encouraged from Cody Mauch and Matt Filer. I don't think it's been egregious by any means, at least in pass protection. And that's half the battle right there with the offensive line. So I think especially after the bye going up against Detroit, I think that will be, a huge factor and something to stand on. And then maybe after that Detroit game, because you would have 5 played games at that point with still a long way to go, then maybe you reassess, or maybe after the following week. But I just think it's a little bit too early right now, but keep it on the mind too.
I agree. And I agree with Engel here and also with Wayne. Robert Hainsey has been the weak link, and I think Josh Capo pointed that out.
Yeah, he did.
The week prior to the Eagles game, just based on the first 2 games films. And, I like Nick Leverett, Matt. I think you and I, we've talked about this here at One Buck Place. We like Nick Leverett, but we like him better at guard as opposed to center, right? So can Nick play center? Yeah, he's the backup center, but I'm not ready to sit there and plug and play him right there at center for Robert Hainsey. But, if Hainsey's play does not improve, I think Jason Light has got to go out and find another center next year, whether it's in the draft, and there will be some good ones actually, or as Jason is prone to do, draft an offensive lineman and move him inside to center, right? He's done that before with Ali Marpet, who played center one year after being, a right guard in Tampa Bay, a left tackle at Howard College. Robert Hainsey has moved from right tackle in there at Colorado State Pueblo. Ryan Jensen, before he was an undrafted free agent with the Ravens, was a left tackle. So you don't have to sit there and draft the center, but I'm not opposed to drafting a center either if he can really, really play, and he's one of those guys. But I think Hainsey's got to play better.
I agree with that. I almost would kind of like the Bucs to go back to finding kind of like what they did with signing Ryan Jensen in the first place, finding like a veteran or a guy that's been in the league for a couple of years that's like fully ready to break out. Now, that doesn't happen all of the time, and you got to get a little bit lucky with it. But they've gone the route of developing guys the past couple of years, and obviously you have to with the draft. That's just kind of the nature of what the NFL is with the salary cap and keeping everyone under it for sure. But they've identified a weakness for sure, and I can't see Leverett doing it. I've spoken to Cody Mauch about it before. He said he'll play anywhere, but I don't think this season is the time to move Cody Mauch to center, as he's still understanding how to play offensive guard in this league. But who knows? Maybe Hainsey can turn it around a little bit. We've seen players improve in the past. It's just a matter of how quickly can you start improving, because the Bucs, much like if they want to make a change at offensive guard, they don't have all day to do it. I think timing really hurt the Bucs last season with making certain moves, especially with Gedeke and Leverett. They can't wait too long, especially if they drop this game to the Saints. Then the clock's ticking even more. Yeah,
for sure. Josh Blackburn brings up a good point about Marcus May.
He is
one of their playmaking safeties. He is out for performance-enhancing drugs. He was suspended last week, and he'll miss this game as well. So that certainly helps out the Buccaneers. I think May was one of their big guys last year in terms of making plays. And if you look statistically speaking right now, he is the fourth leading tackler. Mm-hmm. He has a sack. He also has an interception and a pass breakup. So he's really one of their big-time playmakers. And so that probably helps Tampa Bay for sure without that. And we can also state clearly that if you go back and you remember the fight between Mike Evans and Marshon Lattimore, and we'll kind of get into this more with Eileen Natchik tomorrow from WFLA, who will be our guest on the show. This Evans-Lattimore feud goes back years. And we hope that Mike will be restrained enough to not get tossed out of the game. But if you remember, it started with Marcus May and Tom Brady getting into each other's face. Mm-hmm. And then Lattimore came over, and then Evans didn't like Lattimore at all, but he didn't like him being near Tom Brady. So he shoves him. And then you've got Marcus May, who throws a haymaker at Mike Evans, and that's really where things just kind of took off. And of course, there's Tom just watching because he's the one getting involved in that. But then then all of a sudden, Marcus Lattimore is like, wait a minute, Mike Evans shoved me. I'm going to get back into it. So now Mike gets double teamed with Marcus May and Marshon Lattimore, and then all of a sudden the
melee. Yeah, because Leonard Fournette was involved in that a little bit. But you know what? Like, I think Mike will be fine. I don't think he's going to take the bait. But then you also got to remember, Brady will get in guys' faces. Everyone remembers the Super Bowl when he's screaming at Tyrann Mathieu, who, of course, will be involved in this game too.
Yep.
But Baker Mayfield talks even more crap than Brady does. And we've already seen him, say the thing to the Vikings player. We saw him last week getting all fired up when he got hit out of bounds in the Bears game. Baker might be the one to ignite something in this game with his attitude.
Yeah, as Hezo813 says, Mike will be on his best behavior. He's in a contract year. That's probably a good point. Darius Miller says Paulson Adebo is dealing with a hamstring injury. He might be out. Yeah, let's run down the Saints injuries as well. Now, they did not have a walkthrough because they played on Sunday, so they actually had a real practice. But they had several players not participating. Paulson Adebo, one of their starting corners, was one of them. Derek Carr with his right shoulder injury was another. Jimmy Graham and Ryan Ramczyk, the two older guys, the tight end and the right tackle, they didn't participate, but that was just a rest day. Then you had Jordan Howden, who's a safety, reserve safety. He was out with a finger injury. Foster Moreau, the tight end, is out with an ankle injury. And then, of course, Cesar Ruiz, who suffered a concussion, and that forced Andres Pete into last week's game. He did not participate. So I would assume probably not going to see Cesar Ruiz for this game either. There's a chance Paulson Adebo with that hamstring. Then we mentioned Marcus May. So Bucs dealing with some big injuries. So were the Saints. Derek Carr, Adebo, Ruiz. Those are some guys
Maybe,
probably not going to play. So it's a week 4. It's early, but already a couple of key starters probably not going to be playing for either team.
That's just the nature of the injury bug. Unfortunately, it happens to every team, and that's why sometimes at the end of the season, when you get into the playoffs, it's who's playing well at the time and who has the least amount of injuries. It just unfortunately happens to everyone. That's why depth is so important. And I know the Bucs have been criticized at times for their depth at certain positions, namely at cornerback, where they seem to get injuries all the time, including this season right now. Offensive line as well, not being able to make those adjustments or those changes on the line that they want to. And that's just this nature of the beast sometimes. It's the battle that every team has to go through, and we'll see if the Bucs can make the most of it on Sunday.
Yeah, there's two kinds of attrition. There's injuries, right? That where you lose guys due to injury, and that happens during the season. But the Saints had a different kind of attrition. They had free agency attrition because the Saints, with having all of that cap room necessary to acquire Derek Carr in the trade from the Las Vegas Raiders, they really had to kind of gut this defense, Matt. And really kind of say, okay, Dennis Allen, you're the defensive genius as the head coach. You better scheme this up. They lost a ton of talent up front. Trey Hendrickson, he went to the Bengals. Last year, but they lost even more players. Marcus Davenport went to the Minnesota Vikings. They lost their defensive tackles. It really is a revamped unit up front. You still have old man Cam Jordan, right? Mm-hmm. And we were talking with Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gedeke about that in terms of going up against them. And Tristan was giving Luke all kind of tips and tricks about how to play against Cam Jordan, who he's battled with ever since entering the league in 2020. But you have old man Cam Jordan. You've got old man Demario Davis, who is kind of on the way down. Still a good player, one of my favorite NFL players, but still on the way down a little bit. And then you're looking at, Tyrann Mathieu, who's kind of a little bit long in the tooth, but they've got some new faces up front. Carl Granderson was a backup. He leads the team with 2.5 sacks. I liked him coming out of Wyoming. He's a capable pass rusher. But then they drafted a couple guys. Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame, who's a backup edge rusher. Brian Breesy, their first-round pick. Yeah, he's rotating in with Nathan Shepard and Kalen Saunders up front. So it's a lot of new pieces. Their linebacking core still kind of the same. Demario Davis, Pete Werner, Zach Bond up front, in that second level. But it really is kind of a new defensive line outside of Cam Jordan up front.
It is, and we'll see if the Bucs can take advantage of that. I'm not exactly sure what to make of the Saints defense just yet. They do have 8 sacks on the season. That's only 1 less than the Buccaneers, and points per game wise, really not bad at all. They allowed 15 to Tennessee, and 17 to Carolina, and then 18 to the Packers. But also Tennessee's offense looks like it's going to be in shambles by the end of the year. And Carolina, I know it's so early, but like Andy Dalton almost right now looks like the better option than Bryce Young, who's injured at the time and obviously has to develop, and he's the number 1 quarterback. They're not going to.
You're right. It's just tough, right? It's like if you're Adam Thielen and you join the the Panthers, right, and you're some of those holdover players that Carolina has, do you want to win now? Andy Dalton's your guy, or do you want to just develop for the future and take your lumps? That's
right. But that's a long way of saying it's like, has the Saints defense truly been battle tested yet? Because like in Green Bay, they look good against the Bears defense, which you would love, but it's the Bears defense. I mean, even the Bucs looked good against the Bears, and I don't even know how much of a challenge for the Saints that the Bucs offense is going to be this week, given all the struggles that Tampa Bay has had, whether it's running the football, whether it's getting Chris Godwin involved, whether it's really finding another option outside of Mike Evans, because Cade Otton didn't do much last game. Trey Palmer and Devin Tompkins both combined for 2 catches, even though Trey Palmer was on for like 5 or 6% less of the snaps than Mike Evans and just didn't get targeted. Devin Tompkins got more targets than Trey Palmer. So Bucs got a lot of answers that they need to solve.
Yeah, and if you're looking for answers when it comes to your finances, well, we want you to check out Immuni Financial.
At Amuni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Dude,
congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you? Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it. All right. Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track, so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Amuni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
I've already been to Colorado, had a great time there. Took my wife to Denver for our 10th year anniversary. And now I'm going to Montana, some big sky country during the bye week. I'm looking forward to that, Matt. We're going to freeze our ass off. It's going to be cold, but we're going to get a little taste of fall by going up there. But listen, folks, whether you're saving for a vacation or saving for your kids' college tuitions or saving for your retirement, managing your family's wealth means more to Muni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. With 40 years of experience, let Muni Financial help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Give Muni Financial a call at 1-800-868-6864. That's 1-800-868-6864. Or visit them on the web at muni.com. All right, we are excited to be joined by Eric Gross of the Eric Gross Group, who is he was actually at that Bucs Eagles game. Hey, there's Eric. How are you doing, Eric?
Good, guys. How about you?
Doing good, doing really good. Wow. So, Eric Gross Group is the official realtor of Pewter Report. We're going to talk to Eric here for a little bit. He's got a special promotion that all Tampa Bay fans should be interested in. We'll get to that in a second, but. Eric, big game this week, but first let's talk about your fan experience. You were there on Monday night, probably maybe in a sea of green. It looked like it was a 60-40 split between Eagles and Bucs fans, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know my wife wasn't having fun because I had a couple beers going into the stadium. I'm not going to lie. And there was an Eagles fan in some overalls sitting next to us screaming at everything. Okay. And it took everything in me not to say something, man. I was like, the whole time I'm just thinking, like, maybe I should ask him if, like, they beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl like we have, but I withheld.
Yeah. Or you could say, are you undefeated in the Super Bowl, which they're not. And do they have two Super Bowl rings like Tampa Bay does, which they don't.
Yep. So, no, it was a blast. I did hate the Eagles fans, but, you know, I thought Rondé had his digs at halftime, so I like that. That was that almost made it worth it.
Eric, did it cross your mind at all because it's a Monday night game and it was an hour earlier compared to the 8 o'clock, but that's still like a late night game. It takes forever to get out of the stadium. You got to work the next day. Was there any thought of not going to this game, or just it's such a spectacle? It's the Bucs, prime time. I gotta go.
I mean, I'll go to any Bucs game. Like to me, it's not, it's not, there's nothing that's going to keep me from it. I can understand maybe why some fans didn't. I think Eagles fans travel really well. They always have. I think, I think there was people that if you paid for 2 years of season tickets, you might want to just try and sell and make a little bit back on that. So,
yeah, it's hard to blame Tampa Bay fans for not cashing in like that, and probably, going there to maybe see a loss. It'd be fun if it was a big upset, of course. I mean, anything can happen. That's why they play the games. Look at the Cowboys losing to the Cardinals, and
right.
Josh Dobbs. So, that's why they call it any given Sunday or Monday, because anything can happen. But this is interesting here. We'll just put this up since it's newsworthy. Carr was the one who did the quarterback interview today in New Orleans, not Jameis. So, maybe Derek Carr is still in play a little bit. We'll see about that shoulder. Or it could be just trying to keep Tampa Bay confused and making Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers have to burn even more time to study the Carr film, study the Jameis film. But as Todd Bowles said today, they're studying the Saints offense, right?
Yeah.
Not just the quarterback tendencies, because both of those guys kind of pocket passers. And, I've not been terribly impressed with Derek Carr this year. When he was signed by the Saints, I didn't look at that as a huge threat per se. Matter of fact, Baker Mayfield is the only quarterback in the NFC South, including Andy Dalton and Derek Carr, that has a playoff win under his belt. Your thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, look, I actually haven't hated the way Baker has played. I really didn't think the Eagles game wasn't great from him. But to be honest, I think that was just kind of that was going to be a tough matchup no matter what. The Eagles D line was really good. I thought I might have celebrated prematurely when Mike dropped that touchdown pass. So
Yeah.
man, the crowd went like everybody thought it was a touchdown, and my wife's like tapping me on the shoulder, and I'm just like screaming, and then she's like, "No, yeah, he dropped it," and I was like, "No way!" So I think the game got out of hand in the second half, but I was pretty happy with the way they played in the first half. I mean, the Eagles had a longer. They played Thursday night the week before. They had longer to prepare for it, and I thought, I mean, truthfully, I thought the Bucs didn't play terrible in the first half. I didn't think it was. You know, they were there besides the Rashad White fumble. I thought they had a chance. I'd like our run game to not suck. I'm thinking about maybe beefing back up to 300 pounds and seeing if Jason Light needs a left tackle again, but we'll see.
Well, they might use you at center. They got a pretty good left tackle in Tristan Wirfs, but we understand you played some offensive line in college. So where do you weigh in these days?
So I'm 210 now. I was up to 300 pounds. I got kicked out of center. Wow. So I couldn't snap to save my life. Like, I don't know what it was. I actually long snapped in high school. So
really,
but could not snap like as a center to save my life. I don't know why.
Eric, I'm just curious. Through 3 games, what have you liked so far about the Bucs? We've talked about some of their struggles, the run game, like you mentioned, but what you've watched have you liked about what Tampa Bay has been able to do?
Yeah, I think the offense has been good so far. I think on the run game side of things, as somebody who played O-line, it takes a really long time, especially when you're going from like a power or like a pull system to switch to zone. It's so much cohesion that you don't realize with your O-linemen, and there's handing off blocks that you don't even kind of think about. Like there's a lot of like, you know, center is going to hand it off to the guard or vice versa, whereas like with a power scheme, you're going to double team up to a linebacker, and it's a little bit easier. The defense has been good. I've been happy with the defense without a doubt. The Bears game, I got a little bit upset at the end with the conservative. I always feel like every time we get up by a touchdown, Todd Bowles is just like, let's sit on this bad boy until the game is over. And it gives me a heart attack every time. I'm like, man, like, please just put the nail in somebody. But I mean, we're 2-1. If you asked me at the beginning of the season if we would have won those first 2 games, and I don't think I would have expected it. So if you would have asked me if I would have thought we'd lose to the Eagles, I'd probably say yeah. So I like where they're at. I think they've got a good shot, and I think they've got, you know, you've got time to get the run game together and figure out some of the stuff.
We'll get your thoughts on the Saints in just a second here, but make sure that you tune in tomorrow at 4:00 for our Thursday Pewter Report podcast. NFC South lead is on the line. Bucs and Saints with their special guest. Our partners at WFLA News Channel 8, Eileen Natchik, will be joining us. She was a Saints reporter for the last couple of years, Tampa native. Now she's back in Tampa working for News Channel 8. She's been covering the Buccaneers all training camp, the preseason, and the first couple weeks of the season, obviously. And Eric, you're also a Tampa native too. And let's talk a little bit about your great enterprise, the Eric Gross Group. I'll let you do the commercial, right? But just tell us about the Eric Gross Group. And I think what sets you apart is, and we're going to get into the giveaway here in a second, but what sets you apart is you're a relational guy. You want relationships. You don't look at real estate deals as transactions. You're literally helping people not just buy a house, but find a home, find the right neighborhood, find the right place that fits your lifestyle. And you've got the background here in Tampa. You know this area. And if you can, just tell us about the Eric Gross Group.
Yeah, no, so it's me and my wife are licensed. We run a team. We run a multi-state team, but we've got our 8-year-old that helps us as well. And, you know, we've been super blessed. We treat every client like, you know, we would treat our own mom buying a home. So it's one of those things where, you know, we just try and do the best we can for all of our clients. To us, it's the biggest financial decision anybody's pretty much going to make in their lifetime. So we take it really seriously, and we just want to make sure that, you know, buying or selling a house tends to be a stressful process. I like to think sometimes I'm a funny person, so I like to crack jokes. I like to keep the process light. I like to provide as much value as I can. But, you know, we've been super blessed, and every single one of our clients we keep in touch with. We do client appreciation events. We do everything we can to, let them know how much we appreciate them, because we don't get to do what we do without them.
Yeah. You got a great website, housesandfla.com. It's laid out well. You can see all your inventory there. And it's interesting because you can help people if they're moving from out of state into Florida, or if they have to leave the great state of Florida, you can help them find a house in the state that they're moving to as well. Not just one end of the transaction. You can be involved on both ends as well.
Yeah. Our brokerage has 89,000 agents in pretty much every city and every state. And then we've actually got a multi-state team that's, Eric Gross Group branded. So we're outside of other states as well. But yeah, I mean, we have a ton of people. Florida is one of those states where people are usually moving to from a different state or moving back to, another state. So, I think that's definitely a benefit, is that we have amazing agents that we get to put in there.
Yeah. The next home game is going to be Bucs versus Lions. And of course, that is going to be the creamsicle game. And you've got a creamsicle jersey giveaway that you are hosting, the Eric Gross Group Realty, which is the official realtor of Pewter Report. And in just a couple weeks, you're going to be drawing the winner. So tell people how they can register to win this creamsicle jersey, which they get to pick out the player, they get to pick out the size and everything. You're going to be taking care of the details, but how can people take advantage of this opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. So just go to our business page. It's Eric Gross Group on Facebook, like it. And then there's a post. It's actually this picture we posted to the top of our page. Just write a comment, Pewter Report or Go Bucs or Saints Suck, whatever you want, we'll take. And then share. You can share the post if you want. But yeah, no, we're excited to kind of give away jerseys, just do stuff like that. I know, I've been a Bucs fan my whole life, and being able to give back to the fans is amazing. And I know that actually the Bucs game we went to on Monday was the first one my wife got to go to. So she was
awesome.
Excited. Yeah, she was excited, and it was a cool experience for her. And she loved it. So we love being able. I think we have the best fans in the NFL without a doubt.
Yeah, well, there you go. Just make sure that you go to the Eric Gross Group Facebook page, like it, and then comment on it. You can write "Go Bucs," Saints Suck, Pewter Report, whatever you want, and that will identify you as someone who is entered to win the giveaway here for the creamsicle jersey from the Eric Gross Group. So that's awesome. Absolutely. Eric, really appreciate having you on. And you have a score prediction for this Bucs Saints game on Sunday?
I hope it's like 63-0, and we just absolutely bow race them, because if there's a team I hate more, there's no team I hate more in the NFL than the Saints. So I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be defensive. I think the Bucs. I think Todd Bowles goes up 17-0, sits on a lead, and ends up being 17-14. I think I think we win by a field goal, but
exactly.
I do agree with you. I think it's the best rivalry in the NFC South between the Bucs and the Saints. When you include Mike Evans against Marshon Lattimore, Carlton, we'll see if he plays, but Carlton Davis against Michael Thomas, the battle in the playoffs, it's a bitter rivalry.
I was the biggest Jameis. I love Jameis. When we drafted him, I loved him. I supported him all the time. When they beat us and he was in the locker room with the torn ACL dancing, I crossed him off my list, man. I'm like, I don't care anymore. Do whatever you want in the NFL. I can't support you.
That's awesome. Well, we appreciate you supporting Pewter Report, and we're going to support you at the Eric Gross Group. Eric, we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much. And make sure that you follow the Eric Gross Group and follow and like the Eric Gross Group page on Facebook to register to win there. So, boy, that was a fast, fun show, Matt. And we're going to do it again tomorrow at 4 o'clock with Eileen Natchik from WFLA News Channel 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much looking forward to it. And in the meantime, please make sure you follow us on all of our social media. We are at Pewter Report on X, Threads, Facebook, and Instagram. And then our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV, where we have this podcast 4 times a week. The Pewter Game Day Show, which is coming back again on Sunday. Various clips. So please like and subscribe to Pewter Report TV. It would help us out a lot. And yeah, tomorrow, Eileen Natchik on the show with Scott and I, going to break down Bucs versus Saints even more with her side of it, having covered the Saints and now back in Tampa Bay. So very excited for that tomorrow at 4 p.m. But that's going to do it for us on this show. For Eric Gross, for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Slant Boy is back. We'll see if Carl will be guarding him. Out.